Hi, it's Deborah Hamilton, and today we are going to have a phenomenal discussion with Dr. Gunila Pedersen. She is the lead vet at Overwhelmed Vet Podcast, which I highly recommend. She's also an emergency vet, and she is a coach, a life coach for veterinarians, having experienced burnout and overwhelm as a practicing veterinarian. So let's hear what she has to say. It's a fabulous podcast. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi, everyone. It's Deborah Hamilton, and thank you for coming to Why Do Pets Matter? I am so grateful to have a kindred spirit here with me. Dr. Gunila Pedersen is a veterinarian, a life coach, and just an all-around great person who also wants to work in the animal sphere, helping pet owners and veterinarians and staff work their best lives and live their best lives. So, Gunila, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I love your work. I love everything you do as well. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely the Admiration Society because both of us are trying to use the experiences we've had in our practices to inform others, not to tell them what to do, but rather to have them explore what they need to do.
Absolutely. I think I just share mainly from my personal experience. So I will share all the difficulties I have overcome. I am overcoming what my clients overcome. And I just say, and this is how we deal with it. I don't think you can tell people all day, do your breath work, write your thoughts down, do some yoga. But at the end of the day, you have to explain some sort of situation and where people can recognize themselves and just show different ways of dealing with it.
I know that we're going to have a great conversation here today. So I'm going to start by saying, Gunila, why do pets matter to you?
I think for me, it's been in two phases throughout my life. There was why pets matters. Since I was 4 years old, I wanted to become a vet because I felt so bonded to animals. I had some sort of troubled childhood, and pets, animals in general, always seemed grounded and open and not judgmental, as opposed to many people I met. So I always wanted to give that back and help animals. As I become a vet, I slowly realized how much pet also matters to people. And I had to do a big shift to also actually learn to love people as much as I loved animals, which is where I am now. So now, right now, it's a dual love. It's a love for the animals, and it's also love for all those people they keep happy, and those people that may live alone, that don't have anybody else, children, elderly people.
That human animal bond that you talked about that you started with when you were younger, which created the Gunila we see in front of us, who's a veterinarian and a life coach for people who are involved in veterinary medicine, really started with understanding that the human animal bond goes way beyond just the care and companionship of animals, but really creates that ability for us to really thrive.
Yeah, it does. And I think the problem, quote unquote, with a lot of veterinarians is we come into this because we love animals, and the owners are they're such a big part of that picture. I'll give you an example which will make it easier to understand. For example, when we get a cat in that has trouble breathing, we know that it's bad news. Anytime a cat shows trouble when it's breathing, it's not good. And a lot of times you just can't stabilize them. And the kindest thing is to let the animal go. In this case, this animal was a woman's best friend. It was her partner, her only family. She was not from the UK. She was from abroad, and it was her only friend. And I now have to hold the duality of I need to make sure the cat doesn't suffer. The cat is literally choking in its oxygen chamber, but this lady is standing over here. And yesterday, to her, her cat was healthy. So how do you handle that so you protect the animal, make sure it doesn't suffer, but you also don't push the owner into something she's not prepared for and something she had never imagined would happen when she got up this morning. And that's where I love your book, and there's where you learn to have such a perspective, that just not the one perspective, but several perspectives that we have to handle in a high stress situation. And I think that is such an important thing to know.
You bring up a great point, because you know what to do clinically because you're a veterinarian, and you know the animal is suffering, and you know what the best medicine would be. And how do you then help the owner get there on their own? Because it's it's a time thing, right? The animal
Yeah.
isn't breathing very well, and the owner is really having a hard time letting go. And that conversation is so critical between the veterinarian and the client, and can sometimes go really badly because the client can misunderstand what you are saying. So how did you navigate that? Because it's full of sort of landmines, because if you say something and they take it in a way that you didn't intend it, you know, it in the book it always says, well, just appreciate and acknowledge that they took it a different way, and tell them that this isn't exactly how I meant it. But I'm so glad you pointed that out to me, because it is important for me to understand how you took that information in.
At this point, because I work in ER, most of the time the emotions ride so high that there's no time to have a logical reasoning conversation. It's like, these are the facts. I can't. I'm so sorry. For me in that situation is I have to be vulnerable. And I think that's where, for me, having the confidence and being grounded enough to be vulnerable, I had tears in my eyes. I say, I am so sorry. Like, showing compassion and feeling compassion, realizing how hard it is for this woman, and not be in a rush. So there's the medical part of it, which is loading this cat on opioids. So the cat is just in its own little heaven, not realizing what's going on. Don't let the cat suffer, saturated with oxygen. But also showing, I put my hand on her shoulder, I put my arm over her shoulder, I showed compassion. I said, I am so sorry. I wish I could give you more time. If it had been any other circumstance, I would have given you time to be with her. I kind of explained the ideal scenario I would have wanted when I do a euthanasia. And I said, I'm so sorry, but if you don't want your friend to suffer, you will have to make a fast decision because she is drowning. And it's very hard. And I think for me, in the past, before I found, coaching and self-work, I felt so responsible for the owner's emotions. So I would have wanted to say or do something so the owner would not be upset. But it's impossible. Her best friend is going to die. How am I going to stop that? All I can do is be there, give her the space, show her that I have so much compassion and I'm not judging her for crying her eyes out over a cat, for sure.
Yeah, it's empathy rather than sympathy, because you're
Mm.
helping them understand that you understand where they are right now, that this
Yeah.
isn't something that, you haven't unfortunately experienced a number of times, both as a pet owner and as a clinician. And so being transparent and verbalizing what you're seeing, and I see you're that's so upset, and I know this is your best friend, is so key to creating that trust and belief that you need to help them get to the next place that they need to get for their pets. If they don't trust you and know you and believe that you are there to help them do what's best for their animals, which is what everybody wants to do. They may get there in a different time in a different place, but they get there. And so I loved when you said, I understand this is your best friend, and we need to make this decision, and I'm giving you time because this is a hard decision. Just holding a safe space for where they are right now while they're transitioning to a place where they will be who they need to be, and maybe they won't get there. And before we got on the podcast, you and I talked about how sometimes the clients decide to do something different, and and the outcome isn't what you had expected, and you need to let that go as well, because there's just so much you can do.
Exactly. I can only do with, sometimes I think, especially younger vets get so frustrated. If only they had brought it in earlier. Yeah, but they didn't. This is what you got right now. If only they had insured the animal, we would have money to do X, Y, Z. Yeah, but they haven't. This is what you've got right now, and so on and so on. And I think just coming back to what is in my control and what do I have right now is so important as well going forward, because when you look back and look at your decision you made, you might think, oh, if I had only known, or if I had only seen, then you can't use that. You can't blame yourself for something that in hindsight. It's so important that whatever comes in that moment, that's what you've got. And that's what you got to work with.
And in the mediation world, we always try to have everyone tell their story and request what they want, and then we reality test what it is they want. Yeah, we would have loved them to come in a year ago so that we could have caught this before it, disintegrated. And that's not what we have. I loved what you said, but that's not what we have right now. What's in front of us is what we have to deal with, not to really tell the owner that, well, if you brought that dog in a year ago, we might have been able to save it, because that will just create defensiveness and reactivity. Maybe they didn't notice. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe the cat had to really get to a certain point before they would bring it to the vet. Because as we both have talked about, vet practices and services have become somewhat prohibitively expensive for some owners. And so they might wait longer than they would have waited. And that's not a criticism of veterinary medicine or a criticism of ownership. It's just reality. And so recognize you are where you are and what can you do moving forward.
Exactly. I would never say to an owner, unless they complain to me and put all the blame on me, and now we're at another level, then I would say, well, actually, if this client had brought it in, we could have, and so on. But I would never say it in the moment. Like, I would even lie if I have to. I don't, because what's the point in upsetting this owner, make them feel bad for no reason? Yeah, maybe if you had brought it in a month ago, it would have made a difference. I always say, I don't know. I don't know if it would have made a difference. I'm always diplomatic like that, because I don't see any point in the owners did what they thought was best in that moment. And again, hindsight, when you look back, oh, it did lose weight. Oh, it was drinking more water. Oh, it did, and so on. Like, yeah, and we can't use that right now.
And what usually happens is they start to lose a little weight, they start to drink a little water, and you think it started a week ago, but it started 6 months ago, because life is so busy, right? We
Yeah.
really don't necessarily act in a way that is as eminent, especially if they're still eating and they still feel happy. And yeah, okay, they're getting a little skinny, but it really is difficult, I think, when animals are eating but they're not gaining weight. And that's sort of like the critical telltale. But they're still eating. Yeah, but they're not gaining weight and they're losing weight. So we need to go to the vet to figure out what's happening, that it's going in and going out without any stopping to feed any part of the body. We need to figure that out. And that's, I think, the critical piece. So now you also have branched out to be a life coach for veterinarians because of the experiences that you experienced, for lack of a better word, that almost had you burn out, or did have you burn out. And then you decided, well, what can I do for myself? And then what can I share with others? So tell us a little bit about, pets matter to you, and the people who care for the pets matter for you as well. And that would be all the staff in veterinary hospitals.
Absolutely. Well, I burned out so badly. Like I was saying, I had anxiety attacks. I didn't know I had anxiety attacks. I thought I had heart palpitations. I went to ER several times. I was not sleeping properly. I did not have any private life. My brain was constantly problem solving, and nothing I ever did was good enough in my eyes, and then completely burned out. I had to take a year off and then kind of work back to recognize myself as a person. And then I started missing vet med, and then I got back into it now with being much more grounded, much more centered. And I see so many vets that the problem with vets is that we are so independent, and we are such problem solver, and we are so used to just doing everything ourselves. We're really bad at delegating, but it's for our mental health, it's the same. So the clients that come to me are always so burned out that they have to take some time off, or they're already shifting careers, because by the time they realize they need help, they are like way gone. They are at a point where they're having panic attacks. Maybe I was just reading a post by a colleague on LinkedIn, and he was vomiting 15 times per day, and then he thought, from anxiety, and then he thought, oh, maybe I should get help. Like that's how bad it gets. So by me posting and me doing my podcast, I hope that I can make vet staff realize, you should probably do something about this before you get to this point. And there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of change in perspective. There's a lot of being just aware of what you're doing, feeling your feelings and all that I always talk about. And it matters to me because it's a beautiful profession, and the work we do is so important for so many people and their pets. And when we leave the profession, well, it misses out on us.
It does. It misses out on your compassion. It misses out on your expertise. And I know that I actually went to a conference for a vet group, and I said, "Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. I'm an attorney and a breeder of Irish setters and long-haired dachshunds. How many of you think I'm your worst nightmare?" And the entire room raised their hand. And I said to them, "But you don't even know me." So talk to me a little bit about how, when you're doing your counseling, these preconceived ideas and biases, which can sometimes create that anxiety that makes veterinarians burn out, because somebody walks in and they, identify themselves as A, B, or C. And because somebody with B and C just really rang my bell a week or two ago, or a month ago, or maybe even 2 years ago, I'm just going to put up my, as Brene Brown would say, my armor.
I think we tend to judge really quickly because we have to act quickly normally, especially now, as you know, in healthcare, you get 10, 15, 20 minutes to assess, evaluate, diagnose, treat an animal. So we have to kind of get to the point really quickly, and it's easy to judge people. And it's one of the things I am working on is two things. One is not judging, not assuming, and stay curious. And that is one thing I know, and I know other vets as well, they're trying to teach this empathy, is being curious and keep asking questions and don't assume anything. I remember when I was in vet school, I did vet school in Denmark, and one of the last classes we have was for when you get out in the real world. And the woman there was some sort of, I can't remember where she was from. She said, X-ray the dog, not the owner's wallet. Because you come in and somebody may look poor, maybe a breed or whatever it is, and you make they're not going to want to spend money, or they're not going to want to do this. And nothing is further from the truth. You have no idea. Literally, when I'm in their consult and I don't know the client, and everything is a bit vague, I will do my full, check in the animal, do the full history, say what I think is wrong, what might needed to be done. And then I will ask them, what exactly brought you here tonight? To just make sure, and what would you like to get out of this emergency visit? Because making assumptions and judging and stuff, that brings a lot of problems.
It really does, because we of course are informed by our experiences. That's what makes us good veterinarians. That's what makes me a good mediator and lawyer and things, because I'm informed by my experiences. But I have to recognize, being informed by my experiences doesn't mean that everybody who presents is the same. And I loved when you said, stay curious, because asking curious questions can sometimes answer a question you don't even know you need to ask. So where does the cat stay? Oh, it stays in the laundry room. And what's in the laundry room? Well, all my cleaners and things like that. Maybe the cat got into something, who knows, right? But you wouldn't have known that if you didn't ask a curious question of, well, where does the cat usually hang out? Where does it go? How does it go? Is it an outdoor cat? Is it an indoor cat? And you're right. Veterinarians say, when I'm teaching my classes, veterinarians say, Deborah, we have 10, 15 minutes. Like, I can't get the whole history. And I said, well, pick out 3 or 4 questions that you think have given you in the past the best information that creates that next question. Because what you want to do, right, Gunila, is you want to ask that question that then in the back of your clinical mind says, oh, wait, they stay in there and there's cleaners in there. Let me ask another question. What kind of cleaners are in there? Or, are they all sealed or whatever? Because you want to be able to track down what might be occurring here in real time, and not, as you said, X-ray the pet, not the wallet, but be able to ask curious questions and start with diagnosing in a way that gives the client various ways to pursue. Well, you said this and you've said this, right? I mean, am I wrong? I think that sort of helps veterinarians in the first 5 minutes narrow down what they might need to do.
There's that, and that's also asking questions in different ways, because if what they say doesn't make sense to me, I will ask it again. So I might ask, so is it drinking more or less than normal? And they're like, oh, is it whatever. And I said, but have you looked at the water bowl? Is it going, how often do you fill it up? Or have you got more than one animal that might be drinking? Just I ask it in several ways because the owners might not understand exactly what I'm getting at, or they might just assume again. And you definitely,
Or we might be
stay curious.
oblivious, right? And then we
Yeah.
feel bad because we're oblivious. So you have to be
Yes.
really sensitive to the fact that if you ask them a question, they don't know the answer, that they then are going to internalize, oh my God, I'm a bad owner.
Yes. Yes. That's definitely something I'm very careful about when I ask. And I don't, do the raised eyebrows when they say something as they really new to. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. I just do all that and get the whole package. For me, I love it. For me, it's like CSI. I have to get the history and then put it together with the symptoms. I find it really exciting. So for me, it's a big part of it.
So on the other side, when you have a client who comes in with a 2-inch stack of Dr. Google, how do you handle that? Because here they are, as you know, it takes sometimes a few days, unless the animal is bleeding profusely from an artery. It'll take a few days to get and you're in emergency care, so they are like right there. They might not come in with a 2-inch stack of Dr. Google. However, they might come in with some information, or they might have been Googling while their partner was driving, right? So they're going to come in with some information. How do you handle that? Because I've found a number of veterinarians sometimes say it just drives me nuts, and it really creates that they don't trust my judgment. How do you handle that? Because I know what I teach in my classes, but I'd love to hear how you handle that.
Well, here's something all pet owners might not be aware of. We Google as well. Vets also Google. So if they have done some of that job for me, I don't see it as a threat, but I think it's because through my coaching, I've done so much coaching on myself as well that I don't have anything to prove. I have no ego. I just want what's best for the animal. If they come in, we had, for example, a dog coming in and the owner had Google, I think it's a pyometra, which is an infection of the uterus.
Right.
And the dog came in and had all the, symptoms of pyometra. And I could confirm, I say, no, I agree with you. I think it's a pyometra. Sometimes they can come in and what they're saying doesn't make any sense. And then I just do my clinical exam as usual, do my history. And I say, actually, no, it doesn't point towards that. It just, for me, that's not a problem that they Google it.
That
But
is
I
so
think when
great.
we feel, I think when we feel threatened and we have something to prove, if we don't feel that confident, we got that imposter syndrome, we don't quite trust them, then definitely that could be a problem.
And it often is up to when the veterinarians come out of school, they get in touch with someone like you who's going to help them identify how they're feeling so that they can create this atmosphere that helps them be the best they can be and let go of things that they can't change. And some of that is also in need of mentorship. So there isn't as much mentorship in veterinary medicine in practices because of that 15 minutes in and out. And how do you find young vets versus older vets when they're coming out and they're trying to learn all this information, or they've been out and now it's becoming rote and they're missing things because they're rote?
If they're so what do you mean? They missing?
So they're missing things because they've been in this situation before and this is what it turned out to be. So they're sort of going down that path
Oh,
without
okay.
what you said, asking a few more curious questions about the water.
I don't know. I don't think it's a problem because I can get stuff wrong all the time as well. And for example, because I work nights, obviously at the end of a 13-hour night shift, my brain is not working as it was at the beginning of the shift. So when the day vets come in, and they come in, oh, could it not just be XYZ? And you treated it like this, but if it's not working, maybe it's this other thing. I just go, oh yeah, actually, I hadn't even thought of that, And I think it comes back to, again, not having anything to prove. And I think it's the same for young vets and for older vets. I find young vets now, their level of knowledge and passion and dedication is incredible. I did not know as much as they do when I came out of vet school. I feel they are incredibly, like, they just got it all. And I feel that they would probably miss less than maybe older vets because we don't have all that recent information, all those textbooks on board.
So that's a great point because there have been a number of classes and podcasts and articles regarding, the gold standard care, and then the, spit and mud care where we've done it this way and it's worked, how do you temper some of the information that you might have that might absolutely be cutting edge with the ability of a client to pay for cutting edge, or with conflating what's wrong with the dog in a way that, God, this is just, a ripped out toenail or whatever. It's a bad example, but
Mm.
how do you balance the enormity of what young vets know today because of what they're learning? It's, every profession is becoming more well educated as they get through school because so much more is being found to teach them than the guys 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, I'm 40 years out of school, and we didn't have computers, so we were looking at books. That's a scary thing, but I can still find things that others might go, oh, I didn't even think to do that. How do you handle that? Because there's a lot of client interaction that may or may not create anxiety because of this is the gold standard and then this is the bronze standard, and am I cheating my pet because I'm the bronze standard? Or there's the vet who's been fixing things for years, and why change now?
I love that point. And I think the first point I want to make is when you said in the beginning, veterinary care has become very expensive. It has, but also now we have tools and medication we didn't have before. Chemotherapy, CT scans, MRI scan. That wasn't even a thing when I was in vet school. So when I came out, of course, veterinary care was cheaper because we would I'll give it some antibiotics and some steroids and see if it gets better. And lo and behold, half of them probably did, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we would call gold standard now. And gold standard might be referring, do a CT scan, do full bloods, a full investigation. So I think for me, it's because I have been the type, spit in the mud, like you said. For me, it is easy to say, look, I think your pet has got this and this. This is as far as I can come with hands-on. I haven't got x-ray eyes. If you want to know more, this is what we can do. And then if we don't find anything, or we find anything that indicates something else, then we can do X, Y, and Z. And then I always say, I don't know your financial situation. I don't know how far you want to go or can go. So I'm going to give you the prices for this. And then we can take step one. Or if you think, for example, if the pet is really old or it's really clearly very sick and it's going to be very difficult to recuperate, maybe they'll choose euthanasia. But I think it's a good point that younger vets might struggle with that because they get taught only gold standard. They don't have what I had in the beginning,
Yeah,
like
the spit in the mud, right?
yes, exactly. So they will probably get a bit shocked when people don't want to go for the full gold standard. But I think it's an option you have to give owners. Like you have to
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that's where mentorship comes in, I think, because if the mentorship goes both ways, right? So you're an older vet with a younger vet who knows gold standard, so you're going to learn all this new information. Fabulous. You have to be open to doing that, while you're also enabling the young vet to understand, okay, this is the gold standard, and sometimes you can do this and this and this to either tie them over, see if you need to do that, or that you at least know that there's something there that's a little less than full bore, that the client might feel more comfortable doing for their pets.
Yeah, that's true. And also we have to think, I think because in the last few years I have lost humans, I have lost family, I have lost friends, and I have realized that even if you go all out, which they do in humans, obviously they will do everything, especially in Europe where we have free healthcare, and that might not mean anything. They might still suffer horribly and they might still die. So I don't think gold standard is synonymous with you're going to get a healthy, happy animal back. So I think that's an important thing of it. And I think as someone posted about not even calling it gold standard, because to what you refer everybody, so everybody have to spend £20,000 before they can think that they're going to get a healthy pet back. I don't think so. I think it's just various steps, and just take it as it go, and just keep the client informed. Don't assume anything. Don't assume they have money. Don't assume they don't have money. Let them make the decision, and don't be judgmental. Don't go, oh my God, have you not got insurance? Why haven't you got money for this? No, just this is what we've got, right? I don't know why you're in the situation you're in. That's not my,
It's so refreshing because in the real world, in the mediation world, most of the clients feel as if they are being judged, and most of the veterinarians feel that the clients aren't listening to them for what they should do going forward. And if we are a little more transparent, we actively listen a little better, and we create that know, like, and trust, so we can move forward. The ability to help an animal is phenomenal. I mean, where we were when, I had my first dog in the 60s, to where we are now is incredible. And does that mean because we can do it, we should do it? I always appreciate when a vet says, well, these are all the things. And remember, it's what you feel is best for your beloved pet, period. And then they let me take time. And as you said, here's the cat suffering to go full circle, right? And you've put it on some steroids to give it, some comfort, maybe, being able to breathe, while the client is wrapping their head around, well, what can I do? What should I do? What is best? Because just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Right. And it's, my mantra to most of my pet owners, because I breed Irish setters, and when I hand them the puppy, it's the best day of their life. And as they're walking out of my driveway, I always go, and this is creating the worst day of your life. And you don't know it yet because of the fact that, you haven't spent 10 or 12 years with your Irish setter. And then I'm going to be there at the end of the day to hold your hand on the worst day of your life. But it should always be about them, both for the veterinarian and for the client. It should be about what's in the best interest of the pet. What, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but I truly think it's all about the pet. And remember that when you're coming to this decision, that, it's about the pet and what would make them comfortable.
That's why I try to push for, right? I try to push for what's best for their pet, but it can be very hard. When you have someone where the son died in a motorbike accident and they took over his dog, and now the dog is at the end of it, and for them, it's literally their son dying all over again. Like, there are some times where you make a pet live longer than it really should have because the owners are just not prepared. You have some horrible situations, like an old lady.
That is so important to understand.
Yeah,
And that's that transparency. They have to say, this is my son's. And then you take a step back and you go, oh, this is more than just a pet passing away. And as a veterinarian, being able to be that, as I said before, empathetic, right? This is not just a dog. This is my son in fur. And I'm not really ready to do this. And you're absolutely right. A vet friend of mine said to me, she's brought most of my dogs into the world. And she's transitioned a lot of my dogs out of this world, the ones that live with me that she, cared for 10, 12, 15 years. And one of our dogs we released with one of the Lap of Love people. And it was probably about 5 years ago. And I'm very good friends with my vet. She said to me, can I say something? And I said, what? And so this really tells you, like you, how invested veterinarians are in their client relationships. She said, I just need to tell you how I missed saying goodbye to Buffy.
Oh.
Because she had taken care of Buffy. She had operated on Buffy, she had done everything with Buffy. And she said, I would have driven up. And I said, I know you would have driven up. We were thinking we were saving you an hour and 45-minute drive, because she was with a friend of mine, an hour and 45 minutes away from my vet. And she said, yes, but it's never too long to say goodbye to my friends.
Oh.
And so, to talk about what you do as a life coach, what you do in your podcast, Overwhelmed Vet, this is something that I don't think clients actually understand. Yes, there's a great service out there that helps, you transition your pet on your own time, in your own words, and maybe veterinarians aren't universally like my vet, but recognize that, and I'm sure you agree, that if you've taken care of a dog for 15 years, saying goodbye to it is just as important for you to provide the pet owner that capability as it is for you to say goodbye yourself.
Well, 5 days even. I have animals that are maybe hospitalized for 4 or 5 days, say with a severe pancreatitis or something that turns out to be worse than initially, and they don't make it in the end, and the decision is, like, I get super attached. I work for a week, and in that week, I can get attached to an animal. And when the owners come in to put it to sleep, because it's been the best option, I sit there and obviously I don't cry out loudly, but I'll get tear in my eyes and I'll have to swallow. And, I think we do get invested. A lot of us do. And when you have compassion fatigue, which some vets suffer from, and you don't have that, I think it must be very hard to be at that point where you don't feel it. Because then you end up getting annoyed at the owners. Why can't they just make the decision? Because you're at that point where you're so stressed yourself that you just can't feel that empathy. That's not a very good place to be in.
Yeah, it really isn't. Well, I can't believe we're out of time. It's amazing how
Oh,
fast this 30 minutes goes. I'd love for you to tell everyone where they can get in touch with you. I know your Overwhelmed Vet podcast is a huge hit. You write prolifically on LinkedIn. So let everybody know where they can get in touch with you.
yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn, I'm Gunila Pedersen. And then I'm also to find on Instagram and Facebook as Gunila Life Coach. And the Overwhelmed Vet podcast is probably where you can hear about me talk most. I do have a free PDF for vets as well that they can find on the podcast side, where they can make a start on learning all the tools that I teach as well, to learn themselves better and become more grounded and relaxed in our job.
Well, that's so incredibly generous because that's the first step they'll take. And then hopefully, if they're really, really suffering and need assistance, they'll get in touch with you. Gunilla, thank you so much for being on Why Do Pets Matter? And until next time, I'm Deborah Hamilton, and this is Dr. Gunilla Pedersen. Thank you so much, and
Thank
we will
you.
chat later.